Ciao, hi, hey guys, I'm just going to check I'm live on Facebook. Just waiting on Facebook now. Come on, Facebook. Right on cue. Ciao, hi, hey, it's your boy MKS here, back here on the video. Forgot to say hola. So I'm trying to get used to wearing glasses again. They do feel really uncomfortable. I don't know why, especially on the right side. Perhaps I shouldn't focus too much on it, but try not to fidget too much. But I even forgot to wear them earlier, and sometimes when I watch TV, I get a bit lazy to wear them. Because when I got these glasses, I thought I'm going to wear them, or even before I got them, I thought I'm going to wear them whenever I watch TV, or go online, or whatever, go on YouTube, on the laptop. Either so basically when I'm watching TV or going on a laptop, because I don't really read so very often, except for from Google. So I don't really read books. So yeah, I thought I'd do it whenever, wear my glasses whenever I'm watching TV and or using my laptop. I know, nice life story. Anyway, I didn't get around to finishing this off last night, so quite behind schedule. Someone sort of forced me to go to this event tonight, so even though I'm not a big fan of Valentine's Day, but this guy did something a favour for me, so I'm on my birthday. They basically gave me some money, so I feel a bit obliged to return the favour. But again, nice life story. But these are pointers number 21 to 30, and as per usual. But yeah, it's taken me a while to finally get out of bed and get ready and get focusing. I hadn't had my breakfast and all that kind of stuff. Empty the dishwasher again. Nice life story. But anyway, these are points number 21 to 30. If I'm running behind schedule, I should just try and stop happening and get to the point, I guess. But here goes. So number 21, going back to the theme of the video, I was thinking, like, I talked about potential reasons why I and other people might not love God as much, or whatever, let's say, because it was the 13th when I wanted this, technically. Perhaps I should have finished part 3 yesterday, but I think I had, after my shower, I suppose I could have done, but could have, should have, would have. But yeah, I was doing a few other things, trying to plan for the day, but yeah, it would have been one less job to do. But anyway, so yeah, I was thinking of all the bad, not necessarily that I remember, thankfully, all the bad things that ever happened to me, nor would I want to, of course, but all the bad things that ever happened to me, or other people might think as well, bad things that happened to them in their past. I mean, I know I mentioned, like, there's free will. If God gives us free will, then I think we should accept that sometimes, especially if we make mistakes ourselves. If other people do bad things to us, I suppose you could say it's not God's fault, I guess. But I was thinking, like, things that I'm having health problems, or things like that, things that maybe I feel like God could have looked after me more. Or sometimes I think God could have been nicer to me in the past, but that's my own personal opinion. But yeah, so thinking about potential reasons. Again, I was thinking negative because it was the 13th. And coincidentally, I thought I want to finish off. I was initially going to finish off part 3 last night, as I say, and then finish off part 4 around this time, because it's 1300 hours. I thought, as I hadn't managed to do it, I'll do it today. But yeah, at 1300 hours, thinking about the number 13, so between 1 and 2 o'clock, like 1300 hours. Although I think the devil's hour is supposed to be at 3 a.m. or something like that. Yeah, I really have got to get used to these glasses. Even cleaning them I find difficult. But anyway, I'm going to move on to number 22. I guess fears for the future, or feeling God's not on your side, or whatever. That's a potential reason. Number 23, the poverty and suffering in the world. I know I mentioned I think it's in part 1, I mentioned about George Galloway. I'm sure it's in point number 5 or something like that, or 7, or whatever. But anyway, George Galloway, a British, or former British MP. I think he's left the country now, but he's emigrated or whatever. I talked about how he's what we would call a Marmite character here in the UK. Sorry, now you can see my bald patch. I'm really itchy for some reason. My head's really itchy. I don't know why. Again, these glasses. So getting used to taking a while to get used to. Hopefully, I'll get used to them soon. But yeah, they didn't feel too bad when I wore them in the shop. But I did say I'm going to stop trying to finish it. I said to myself even before I made this video, but I'm finding it difficult. But yeah, I might have to stop wearing them till my eyes really hurt, and then I might wear them just to protect my eyes from hurting or whatever. But yeah, if I get headaches or my eyes start hurting, but if I spend too much time on. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, how George Galloway said about his constituents in Bradford, and like how if Scotland gets its independence and people in Scotland are better off, it means other. He goes, in order for some people to be better off, other people have to be worse off. And I think like if, again, I did say I wouldn't focus on one particular religion, but if I think like a religion which says people would go to hell for not believing in it or whatever, then I think like in order for me to like or whoever gets there and do well by some miracle if I got there. But another thing I was going to say is my personal heaven would be very different. I was going to say in point number 11, I think I forgot. One or two things I forgot to say, and I think in point number 11 I was going to say my personal heaven would be very different. I think there was one or two other things I forgot. Anyway, but yeah, so like narrow is the path, it says in Christianity and things like that. So I think of like that's something I wouldn't want to think about other people suffering. So it is a bit of a difficult dilemma. Like sometimes I think this feels awful to say, but as I say initially, I was going to do this on the 13th, and hopefully God forgives me for this one and proves me wrong, perhaps. But hopefully, ideally, I don't know how, but it would take a miracle. But I was thinking like, if there was no God, then there'd be one less master, and two, there would be less suffering, I guess, because people wouldn't have to live forever, whatever. And once you die, your suffering would end, I guess. I know it's a very pessimistic way of thinking. Again, it was the 13th when I came up with this list and this topic. I am going to try and think of a more positive one a bit later today. Excuse me. But yeah, I guess like narrow is the path of other people suffering and like there being hell or stuff like that. And I guess I don't really. Another thing I forgot to say, perhaps I could have said in point number 13 or whatever, or even in point number 1, I guess, is or whatever, is that, or even in point number 7, like 6 and 7s or whatever, but is that I don't want to believe in something because I'm fearful. Like I wouldn't. Let's say there was a. I know it's Valentine's Day, funny enough, sadly enough, or whatever. But as if there was a woman, or let's say a lady, or whatever, a woman was going to date someone, and they said this guy says if you don't date me, I'll beat you up. I would think bad about that person. Or if someone says, even if a lady said that, or so-called lady, or woman, let's say, she wouldn't be very lady like you would say, I guess. But if I'm going to be careful what I say, but if I hope I don't offend too many people, but if a woman like threatens someone and says if you don't date me or marry me, then I'm gonna do something awful to you, like stab you or try my light at you or whatever, horrible things, or people throw acid at people or whatever, I wouldn't think much of that person. So like it's a threat, like loving you or else, or you'd go to hell if you don't believe. So that's a dilemma. I don't want to believe in something out of fear. Well, I probably would, but I'd rather not believe in something out of fear. But I'm going to move on to number 24. I suppose bad things happen in different days, or not blessing my health in my case. But again, other people might have their own personal reasons. Number 25. Sorry. Sorry for fidgeting. I did say I wouldn't. I try not to focus on one particular religion, and although I think of Christianity more, and I've heard more about Christianity or whatever, or even though I've only read a little bit of the Bible, but I've heard people. I've read it online or heard people talk about it or whatever. I don't really read books, and it's too scary to read it. Or or I just don't have the patience and the attention span and the understanding. I'm like, I don't really understand it anyway. So I think what's the point? Someone said about politics. They posted on their Facebook like, I don't understand it. So what's the point? But I was thinking like in Christianity to say you've got to call Jesus Lord, and I can't stand the word Lord. If I call, I actually said that to a religious guy once in an Alpha course, which the churches sometimes do, some churches, and it was actually at a pub, as it happens. But they were talking about like, I said about Lord, and they said some people have bad relationships with their friends. I wonder why it would be a friend if you had a bad relationship with them, or with their fathers, or their father's dad, whichever term you want to use. So they say that's why you say Lord. But I'd rather be able to call God father or dad or friend. I feel much more closer. But Lord feels a bit like sort of what's the word, haughty or whatever the word is. It feels like I'm up there, like lofty or whatever. It feels like I'm up there, I'm above you, and I feel like a lord is a boss. I also feel like powers and principalities. Like I'm not a big fan of of monarchies. In fact, I'm a big fan also I think, like, again, rather controversially, I think, like, if atheists are right, let's say, if there was no God, then I guess there'd be one less boss to worry about. But yeah, so having to call Jesus Lord and having to worship, I'm not a big fan of worship or calling Jesus Lord or having to say master, boss, or things like that. I know I said about like, narrows the path and other people's suffering, or myself or other people's suffering, or like your relative goes, how could you love God? Well, that's a confusing one. But yeah, having to say Lord and having to worship and struggle having to say Lord, and there's quite a few other things that put me off religion. Again, I don't want to believe in something out of fear. And another thing about in Christianity, it says like tongue will every tongue will confess and every knee will bow. But if I had a choice, I would never want to bow to anyone really. If I had a choice, one of the things that put me off weddings, I wouldn't want to have to go on one knee and do all these sorts of things. And also the amount of rules and laws. Like a place I go is like a church, a games group, which happens to be hosted at a church. And I've seen like writings on the wall about different things about religion, which is fairly interesting. But one of the things it says is like there's like hundreds of laws, maybe even thousands of laws, especially in the Old Testament. Like so, again, even in Islam, like there's loads of laws. You have to pray 5 times a day and things like that. So I'd rather have, like be more free, and I'd love for people to be more free. I think it should just be like do whatever you want, but then give other people the same privilege. Like don't touch women without their permission. Don't. I think there should be some rules and some laws, like age appropriate stuff or whatever, or consent or things like that. Don't stab people, don't shoot people, or things like that. But other than that, I think people should be free to do what they want. And that reminds me, I was going to say, almost forgot to say, but like in apparently the Satanic Bible says, do what the law is summed up in this statement, which is do what thou will, which is supposed to be satanic. But to me, that is freedom to do what you want. Now, some people might disagree with people's ethics, but if you might say like, I disagree with your view, but I'll defend your right to have that view. I disagree with you, live in this way, but I'll give you a right to do that as long as you don't hurt other people, or whatever, as long as you don't go out your way to hurt other people. Even like taxes, I think, are a violation of freedom. But I'm going to move on. I think that comes, I think, from number 25. I'm going to move on to number 26. Lack of justice. Like, I think if God doesn't support countries that were colonized and that kind of thing, I think that would be unfair. Number 27, holding back rewards. I wish God would reward, and I wish life itself would reward through God would reward every good intention and good action, especially intentions in some ways. Well, maybe equally so. I guess you could have a good intention, but be too lazy to act on it. But if your intent is that strong, your intent or intention or whatever is that strong, it's the same thing, then I guess you will act on it, I guess. But if you felt that strongly, I guess, over time. But yeah, I think intention should go a long way. Like sometimes we mess up, but that's human. We can't really help doing that. Also, we're not perfect, but I was thinking like, even me, I'm just joking, certainly not me. But if you have an intention to go and help the homeless and you have food in your van or whatever, or your car, and you go and travel to help the homeless, and you accidentally run someone over because they jump in front of your car really quick, or you accidentally mess up and you hurt people rather than help them, but you didn't mean to. I think that your intention should go a long way. Like, I think every good intention, and in Christianity again they say only God knows what's in people's minds and hearts, especially their hearts. Well, in their minds and hearts, I guess. I think the saying is only God knows what's in your heart, and things about God in the heart for evil or something like that, and saying about people being evil and that kind of thing. But yeah, I wish God would reward every good intention, like as well as action. I wish no good intention and trivial action would go unrewarded. And like people say, like to God our greatest works are filthy rags. That's what I say in Christianity. Apparently, I don't know what Islam says on that or other religions, but I suppose Islam says like you have scales where you're weighed on like your good and evil intentions and actions and whatever, which I think, if I'm honest, is kind of a better system maybe. Because I think if you're punished for the bad things, it'd be good to get reward. Like if someone only looked at the bad things about me and always had a go at me, and then never looked at anything positive and said, "Oh, this guy tries to do good," I would be really disappointed. I'd want to, and someone else always said good things about me. I'd want to hang around with the other person, or even if they mostly said good things about me, I take it literally. But yeah, so basically, I think every good intention and action should be rewarded, and I don't, dare I say, I don't think God should see us filthy rags or whatever. Yeah, obviously these videos are about my honest opinions as much as possible, as much as I'm brave enough to share. Number 28, I think, like, what if things seem really good and then they go really bad? I talk about, like, my paranoia and to a people point. I don't know if I should say this story, but I was sitting down once and I had a really paranoid thought. I thought, imagine, I was reading a bit of the Bible and I was a bit paranoid. Back in the day, I used to read. Back in the days, I used to read books and things like that. And it said about, don't worry, God will make you happy or whatever, but or to believers or whatever. There were some negative and scary messages, but there were also very positive ones. But then I thought, what if God tricked someone, and including well, at that time, especially if it was myself, like, and made me feel happy for like 500 years or even, like, it feels scary even just to think about those times, especially eternity or whatever. Again, thinking a bit negatively, but and then as a trick, and then when I was just complacent and enjoying myself, then God sent me to hell, not that kind of scary thought. So again, my paranoia stopped me from loving God, I guess, personally. Again, different people might have different reasons, which I'd love to read in the comments. I hope all this makes sense, of course. Number 29, not supporting my goals and dreams, like might call the MKSS United group, and things like that. So I wish God would bless MKSS United, or MKSS as I call them. I won't go into too much on that. And number 30, dare I say, rules like no fornication and that kind of thing. If God gave me the choice, if I could do a deal, if only I could do a deal with God. But I'm not too sure I should take what I asked for. But yeah, if I could do a deal with God, I definitely wouldn't be celibate, and I wouldn't be wedded or married or anything like that either. In fact, God never made certain things like weddings, marriages, or even myself when I'm depressed or whatever. But anyway, on that bombshell, I'm out.